There are three reasons given as to why we fast on the 10th of Teves, on Asarah BeTevet. The first, and probably the most famous, is that the city of Yerushalayim was besieged by enemy forces. The second is that Ezra HaSofer died. And the third is that the Targum Shivim Lishnayim happened during this time. The 72 rabbis who were asked to translate the Torah into Greek. This is very strange. What's wrong with translating the Torah? I mean, I don't know anyone who sits on the floor and tears kriya and fasts on the day the first Art Scroll Stone Chumash was published. What's wrong? What could be wrong with translating the Torah to allow a wider audience to access the Torah who may not have been able to in its original Hebrew? Moreover, Moshe Rabbeinu himself was the first person to translate the Torah. The Torah says that Moshe Be'eres Torah, and Rashi explains that this means that Moshe translated the Torah into 70 languages, presumably into Greek as well. So what could be the difference between Moshe Rabbeinu's translation and the translation of the Targum Shivim Lishnayim that were mourning and fasting over this tragedy? I want to share with you an insight that I heard from a dear friend of mine, Rabbi Schreier. There's a fine but crucial distinction between Moshe Rabbeinu's translation and the translation of the Shivim Lishnayim. During the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Jewish people were confident in the Torah and its values. We as insiders knew that we must spread the Torah, Shebichsav, and its values to the rest of the world. However, during the times of the Second Temple, the world had now come under the influence of Greek culture and Hellenization. And there comes a powerful Greek king and demands the Torah be translated into his language. What he's essentially saying, this Greek king, Talmi HaMelech, was saying, translate the Torah into my terms, and I will be the one to determine whether I think it's valuable. If it conforms to what I believe, if it conforms to my moral code, then and only then do I have respect for this text, for this tradition. I am the judge of whether this Torah is worthy of my respect. The tragedy of the Targum Shivim Lishnayim is now that the Torah, the living word of God in this world, has to justify itself, to conform itself into the modern age. On Asarah BeTeves, we were not only besieged physically, we were besieged metaphorically, because there were outsiders peering into our walls and to determine if what we had inside was valuable. And this is a debasement, a bizayon of the Torah. The living word of God in this world does not have to prove itself to anyone. History has shown that societies have risen and fallen, but the Torah still remains. We still have our Masorah. We still have our tradition and our heritage. That when the Torah's value is to be determined by outsiders, to see if that is, to determine its value, that's a reason to mourn, and that's a reason to fast.